Welcome to the Hair to Tech podcast. We're so excited to be here. I am Amber.
And I'm Jen.
And today we have joining us Craig Olsen from Liberty Mutual. Oh my gosh, I'm so thrilled to talk to you, Craig. Thank you, Jen, for hooking it up.
You know, Craig is, he is just exactly the right person to come and talk to you at this point in your journey because he has so much good advice to talk to people who are just getting started in a technology field. So
yes. Okay, Craig, let her rip. Tell us about yourself, please.
Sure. Yeah. So my name's Craig Olsen. I'm a cybersecurity architect. That's what I guess I go by during the day. I'm a cybersecurity architect at Liberty Mutual Insurance Company, which is a very large insurance company headquartered in Boston. I've been with Liberty Mutual for 15 years.
Wow.
It is really the first and only professional career that I've had. I have been in cybersecurity for 12 years, and awesome. I love it. I've also been an adjunct professor, a graduate professor for information security at Southern New Hampshire University. I used to live out there, and I would teach, and I taught probably about 18 classes over the course of about 3 years and loved it. Always looking for different ways to inspire students and encourage people in this industry. So about myself, I live in the great state of Utah. I relocated here about 3 years ago. Married, have a son named Graham, and I love technology. I think that's probably, I feel like I just did like a quote from Napoleon Dynamite by saying that I love technology, but I really do.
And tater tots.
Yes.
I love the tots.
Llamas.
Yeah. Living here in the Jello Belt, it's a little bit different.
So, Jello Belt, oh my God.
Anyways, yeah, so I'm glad to be here, and let's talk. Let's go.
That's awesome. Okay, so I'm going to ask you not typical questions that I ask people because as I've gone through on this journey, I feel like I'm starting to get an idea of like, okay, this is what to expect. But since you're in it, I am going to ask you the questions that I'm like, okay, this is really now at the point where I am, what I'm really wondering. So to lay it out there. Okay, so I started this journey in, when was that? May-ish. I made the decision, like, I have got to make a change. And now that that's been several months and I'm starting to learn, I'm like, whoa, Amber, you have so much to learn. Oh my gosh, so much to learn. And also, what is it actually going to look like once you start applying for jobs? Once you are actually hired, what is your schedule and life going to look like? Because I'm used to complete autonomy since I've been 20. I mean, I've been self-employed, so I'm used to making my schedule when I want, which is awesome. I mean, self-employment has pros and cons, and now that I'm shifting into a different path, I want to be realistic with myself of like
9 to 5.
Yeah, 9 to 5.
Does that scare you? 9 to 5?
It freaks me out, man. But like, if that's what it takes, then that's what it takes. And also, is it like, okay, you have a 9 to 5 for X amount of time, and then with those skills, you can go branch off and do your own thing. Like, is that even realistic? Anyway, so.
Or is even getting a job realistic? So.
Right. Am I crazy? Like, hey, noob, you don't know anything and you already want to come in and take and dictate what your roles will look like. So like that's a lot of information, but.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. I think some of that depends on who you work for.
Okay.
I'm going to say I'm fortunate to work for the company that I do because they allow us to do flexible schedules.
Okay.
And they allow us the ability to set time and really kind of dictate throughout the week. So if you work more on one day, you can work less on another day.
Okay.
I get to me, that home life balance is very important.
Yeah.
And so a company, if you choose to go kind of, work for a company, definitely things to look for. I think, immediately the first thing we look at is like the pay, right? And after a certain point, the pay shouldn't be the reason why you work for them. It's, the ability to influence change, what's their mindset? Where are they moving towards? Are there opportunities for you to grow? What's that promotion path like? So I feel like, going into the industry, you're probably like, I'm going to be constrained,
right,
to these requirements. But in some ways, it's you get used to it, and then there's opportunities that certain companies allow you to give you that flexibility. So
that's awesome.
Maybe I'm used to it, but I can't complain. So
Yeah. Well, like you, I have 0 hour requirements in terms of when do I have to do the work, when do I have to be available. I have full flexibility in my schedule, and that's an amazing thing to say in a full-time job in cybersecurity. That's not common, although you and I both do it, so maybe it's more common than we think. Maybe we are thinking,
I would hope so.
Maybe we have the old paradigm in our heads. Like maybe because that's the way it used to be. Butts and seats
it used to
from
be very rigid,
Yeah.
But it's breaking down, and I think COVID is breaking it down even more. So maybe we need to start looking at it from fresh eyes, and instead of being scared of, I'm going to be locked into a time, maybe look at it instead of, hey, there's a potential opportunity. Let's go see what their expectations are for time and see if they meet.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, in some cases, if you get the work done, that's the important part.
Sure.
And I've been working remotely full time for 3 years now. And at first I was a little hesitant about it because I find value in being and interacting with people sometimes in an office. But, COVID is kind of, I think, introduced to the world that it is possible that you can get, productivity and performance while having a very large portion of your staff remote. Yeah. And that right there is amazing. Like I'm just going to go run upstairs and grab a quick snack, or I'm going to go, throw a load of laundry in real quick, and being able to not have to worry about some of that. Usually I try to mow my lawn in 35 minutes. So if I get like a lunch break, and I don't recommend doing it in 100-degree temperatures, but I do it, and it's like,
that is unwise, sir.
And then I just go out and I come back and everyone's like, boy, Craig, you must be really passionate about this. No, I'm out of breath. Like, I'm really tired, because I just mowed a lawn in 103 degree, and they're like, are you crazy? I'm like, yeah, maybe. But just having that ability to balance things and be like, oh man, I forgot to put the garbage out, and being able to run and go do it.
Right.
So I think that, definitely look at, there's some benefits to that. And when you get settled in, you're going to be like, wow. So this works.
Is that something, because you have both been in the industry for a while, and so maybe it's because of your seniority that you have those more flexible schedules, and so it's that's also something that I'm trying to be realistic with. It's is it going to take, am I able to find something? Would I be able to find something like that right off the bat? Is that something that's 1 year down the road, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road? You know what I mean? Or like you said, Craig, because of COVID now, maybe that is more realistic sooner than I anticipate. I don't know. That
is one of the great unknowns.
Yes.
But I mean, I don't want to give a plug for my company, but what I have is for our entry-level employees. They have those same benefits.
Oh, okay.
They have that same flexibility. And it's great being able to be like, hey, I've got a doctor's appointment, or I've got an appointment at the school with my kid, and adjusting that schedule and knowing that management has your back. So I moved to Utah because I had a special needs son. And it was one of the things that was really great because the company supported me. They're like, whatever you need,
that's
whatever
amazing.
you have, and just not having to stress about that. And my son was hospitalized last summer for about 5 weeks before he passed away, and not having to worry about anything at work because it was all taken care of. That was a huge. I was like, wow, this is awesome. And I hope that other companies are that way. And I've talked to a lot of other companies, and I feel that they're that same way. So don't feel that it's, that we're kind of the edge case on this.
Okay.
I think there is a lot more recognizing that home life work balance is extremely important.
Right.
And you get the most out of your employee. And plus it builds loyalty.
Yes.
It builds a reputation. It makes it so people want to work there and stay there.
Right.
Right. And I'm so sorry about your son. I didn't know that, Craig. And I just think how many other people are experience struggles like that with people that they're caring for in their families, that it makes it so much worse when their work opportunities don't support their ability to do both. Because I think in the old way of thinking is either you're thinking about your job when you're at your job, and you're not thinking about it when you're not at your job. And so that the idea of work-life balance used to be got to keep them separated.
Gotcha.
There we go.
But now, yeah. But now there's a more integrated approach to that work-life balance, and supporting people who might go through something like that as well, and yet have that support from their work, so that at least there is a foundation of regular activities that are there while dealing with the difficult things, right? And I think that is more common now than it's ever been before. And so maybe the takeaway is really dive in and see.
Right.
So when we started this podcast with Amber, she didn't even know what she wanted to do. She just knew tech.
Yeah.
It had to be tech. And so we started getting people on the podcast, and the person after person describing their job and saying what they do. But I think she got the bug early, because our very first person to talk to her was Holly Grace Williams.
Yeah.
From over in England. She's a pen tester, and she talked about her job. And
she's like, I break into buildings and websites for a living.
Physically,
I'm like, what?
Remotely.
Yeah. And so that, you kind of caught the bug there, right?
I did.
And so, but we've talked to a lot of other people, but what was really kind of an eye-opener, last week we talked to someone in QA, software development QA, who told her you could get a job in QA today.
Yeah. And I was like,
and it freaked Amber out.
It did. It did. I like it, to be completely honest about it. It was like, wait, what? I can make this change right now? Am I
Are you holding
ready?
Yourself back because you weren't ready for, you think you're looking at a change, but you're thinking about it too far in the future.
Right.
So I guess the question, from your experience, as a professor and as helping other people into and through this industry, what do you need to be able to get a job?
Yeah, that's a great question. And as I've mentored kind of entry-level hires at my company over the years, and as I've mentored some of my students over the years, I think there's a couple of key skills that need to be really, and some of them are, you can learn. I always tell people we can teach technology.
Right.
That technology is not something, that you're like, oh, well, this person is just going to be great at technology. This person, we can teach that. Mm-hmm. There's certain other skills. And I feel like one of the valuable skills, at least from my perspective, is the ability to have critical thinking and doing critical analysis. So no matter where you're at, if you're a QA tester, being able to say, I broke something, and then being able to say and this is how I did it. And then be able to say, well, can I also break it again and a different way, and really kind of branch off to it, because that's valuable, being able to say, I keep breaking this app in these different ways, and then I'm going to write up some really good analysis of exactly how I broke it, so that the developer can take that and build the application better. Mm-hmm. And so just that ability to instead of just following along a dotted path, I always tell, some of our analysts, it's don't be interested in what I think. I want to know what you think.
Oh, that's
and how you came to that conclusion.
So refreshing. Do people usually think like you, Craig? Do people?
I don't know.
Do
the good ones do?
Because I guess that's something even that right when you said that, I didn't realize that I had this belief around is people are going to tell me that I'm messing up all of the time, that I'm doing something wrong all the time. And I have this deep-seated fear of I'm doing something wrong. I don't want to get in trouble. But if you're encouraging that just opens up so much freedom to do many things.
Let me give you the best advice I can give you. Okay. Remember that you have the right. You reserve the right to be smarter tomorrow than you are today. And that you are going to realize that you made a mistake 18 months ago on a decision, and that's okay, because you're going to pivot and you're correct that. And that 18 months from now that you're going to say, yeah, that was the wrong decision. But as long as you recognize that and you pivot and change for it, but you reserve that right. And you especially from the world of information security, where people get they almost think of it in this black and white, contrast. It's not. And some people have almost a religious zeal around information security and cybersecurity. No, security is an art and a science. There's a lot of different shades in here. A lot of it's, how much are you willing to compromise? And so I feel we try to draw these strong lines. It's a learning opportunity. I learn all the time. And here's some other great advice that I can give you. And Jen probably understands this. Imposter syndrome.
Yes.
Is real. And I feel it almost daily. Yeah. I cannot tell you the number of times I get on a call with other companies and I'm talking to their security department, and I'll ask a question and the call will go quiet for a brief second. And I'm like, They're laughing. They're like, whoa, listen to this joker over at this company right here. He's asking ridiculous questions. And, and then finally they'll respond back and we'll have some dialogue. And I'm like, because if you don't feel like you're an imposter, because then that means you're not learning. You should always feel like there's more to learn. And I look back on things that I wrote a long time ago and I'm like, what was I thinking? Like, what, this is terrible. But
exactly.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Right.
That's perfectly fine.
Yeah. That's, and it's, this topic of imposter syndrome keeps coming up in conversations.
You talked about it last week.
And so I had 2 conversations about it yesterday with people completely unrelated to this. And I think what it is there's so much to know in technology. And if you're in cybersecurity, you're being asked to decide what is our risk level against these specific threats, what are our vulnerabilities, what are our options for putting in security controls to protect against it, what is the best security control, and then you're like, I can't read Juniper firewall rules quickly at all. I mean, it takes study, and that's part of my job is I have to be able to look at the firewall rules. What's ingress? What's egret? What are all these things? Can't do it. A little quicker on Cisco, but you know what? There are tools where you can put it in and it gives you a report. And that's okay too, right? So not knowing these specific things about specific tools, I think, is what kind of gets in some of our heads a little bit.
It does, and I feel like there is that expectation that, and it's like, well, you should know this. I'm sorry.
Right.
This is going to take some time to understand it. And I'm going to make a stake and I'm going to base it off of these factors. This comes back to that critical thinking, right? I made this decision because of this. And I often tell people, especially in cybersecurity, those that are going into it, that there's kind of 2 key things that should be focused upon. One is, can it pass a smell test, right? Does it smell all right? Like, are you coming up with these crazy scenarios, involving, this nation state and this, reading this paper from this group and then abusing this. And it's like, how far down the rabbit hole did you have to go? So I think sometimes we have to say, like, does it pass the smell test? Does it seem real or plausible? And I think that's one of those factors, like, especially in security, is that we just have to keep it real.
Yeah.
Right. Don't make it.
I might have been listening to Darknet Diaries too much. I'm like, what? How am I ever? Which is an amazing podcast. But I'm like, oh my gosh, how long is it going to take to know Linux well enough to be able to do those things?
No,
is that,
you don't need to do it.
This comes back to that we can teach technology. And even then there's going to be more technology, right? It's those critical thinking skills. It's being able to articulate, and communicate. Communication is such a big deal. I often tell people in cybersecurity, don't be afraid of conflict. The notion of being in security is conflict itself. You are trying to protect the assets of your company, and that, and sometimes it's just like balance, because you'll say, well, this poses this level of information risk with this level, of loss magnitude. But the loss to the business of not operating or seeking after a new opportunity might exceed that risk.
Right.
And we have to remember that oftentimes the business is what makes the money. It's what pays your paycheck. And so you have to find that balance. I think sometimes it's like this, but it's a loss. But the companies also have to take a risk too.
Yeah,
so trying to find that. Going back to the second point, I want to make sure I get both of these in here.
Yes.
So, number 1 is the smell test. Number 2 is, can you defend it? And I think this is really a key thing. Is that, can you defend the decision that you're making today? Now, recognizing that it might be wrong, that's fine. But at that moment, can you defend it? And can you defend it to the company, to an outside party? For my industry, we're in a regulated environment, so we have regulators. Like, can we defend our decision? And that's been a big key thing is always saying, like, can we defend it?
Yeah.
And by defending that, can we tell a good story? Can we tell why we did this? I feel like those 2 factors right there, especially if you're looking at the field of InfoSec, are 2 key things that really should kind of hone in. It's like, don't go way pie in the sky, like, hypothetical, crazy thing, because people are going to be like, okay, wow, that was a lot. And then the other one is recognizing, like, hey, we're not going to tell a perfect story, and that pretty good is always going to be better than perfect. Yeah. Unless you're like the military guarding like our nukes or something like that. Okay. We need perfect security around that. So.
Sure.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
So I was a lot of times as an auditor, I'll go in to assess a an organization, and sometimes I'll get someone in the IT department saying, well, we don't have to do that, doesn't apply to us. And my answer is, it might not, but you don't have a compelling story. You haven't even told me why you're doing what you're doing. Did you do a risk assessment against it? Did you analyze exactly and then write it up so that I know what you know? Because if you know something but it's in your head or only half formed, you can't defend it, right? And so then we're all kind of stuck in the dark on things, and then we have to go with more of a checklist approach to cybersecurity rather than I have this idea, it goes against this certain risk stance, and then it all kind of comes together in a logical, reasonable way.
Okay, that makes sense.
This is going to be farther down in your, because you're still looking at how do I even get the foot in the door, right?
Right. So the webinar that you presented on last week, I have to give props to Jen because I'm going to brag it up for her. She crushed it on this cybersecurity mentoring webinar. It was awesome. And she was talking about how to become a security auditor. But what a lot of people were saying is, like, for an entry level to get your Security Plus certification, would you second that, Craig? Or like, what are other things that you would recommend doing? I mean, not just getting the certification, but also having the practical experience.
And just to clarify, I was not one of the people that said to get that.
Okay.
It was in
okay.
the... Okay.
Well, not that it's wrong.
So not that it's wrong, but I wasn't pushing that as part of the the approach, right? Okay.
Yeah, so let's talk about certifications, right? I think there is it's one of these things, and there are some that argue that a certification is just a point-in-time piece of paper that said that you regurgitated some information. I'm not necessarily one of those people who believe that. I think there is value in that, and some of it is definitely those entry-level Security Plus, A Plus, Network Plus, the GSEC stuff that's done by SANS. Are great certifications, and they tell an employer at least a baseline, a little bit about what you can and have demonstrated, at least at a point in time. I mean, a college education is just a point in time certificate. It said for 4 years, I learned about cellular respiration and I learned some things about microeconomics, and here's a piece of paper. And it doesn't prove anything, and that piece of paper is going to get older and older. I look at some of the tech classes I took in college, and I don't think RPG-4, which is on a mainframe language, is utilized a lot in 2020. So whoop-de-doo, I took an RPG-4 class. But, there's still those things that come back.
I took an Access class. It was pretty good back in the day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so I feel like, it's definitely one of those that, like, with certifications, it's a good thing because it gets you in and it gets that baseline understanding. Right. And, especially, just understanding network concepts.
Right.
And yes. I would tell this to my students, and I taught like a master, it was for an MBA class. It was like IT 500. And so nobody in the class were tech majors. They were all, business or whatever. Cool. And I would always tell them that no matter what they ended up doing in their career, that if they understood security and just some basic principles about how it operates, you will be a bigger asset to your company.
Right.
That if you end up being a programmer or a QA or in project management or anything, but understanding security, you are a better asset. And that's one of those factors that you want to use to separate yourself.
Right.
So being a quality, doing quality assurance, it's like, I did all these use cases because this is what we expect the user to do. But hey, let me throw in some abuse cases.
Right.
Let me go break this app in ways that, like, this phone number field should only take numbers. What if I start entering letters into this? What's it going to do?
Yeah.
Right. And when we start recognizing that security is really just, a defect, it's a code defect is really what it is. Like, by understanding that, better asset to your company, no matter what you end up doing. And so it's start somewhere. You need to build that baseline. And whether it's memorizing ports, whether it's, memorizing computer hardware or just basic concepts within security, it's a great start. And I always encourage people absolutely to go after the certifications.
Okay.
And so do I. I didn't, but
good.
with a caveat. And then actually this kind of expanded into further conversations this week. It's been all about one of the questions I was asked was, do you value a master's degree in computers more or something like a CISSP? And I have both, right? So for me, I'm like, value more. Do I value more? Does the employer value more? Because if you look at what is value to an employer, they're going to take action based on value. right? So that's how a business demonstrates value. They take action on it, right? So either they're going to hire you based on a degree or certification, or they're going to be willing to pay for that once you're part of their organization, right? So these are things that if they value it, they're going to put money towards it. And so if you look at the job itself, what is the job you want and what is the certification against that job? I found this really cool tool online. I'll have to send you the link. It's called cyberseek.org. And it's in the US. I know, I had never heard of it. And it's part of the NIST NICE thing. What does NICE stand for? It's something about cyber education. Anyway, it's important. It's one of the important NIST things. But it's
very important.
Right, very important as cyber education. But it's so NIST NICE, and they are part of the group that developed cyberseek.org. So what you do is they have these tools. You can click on a map of the United States, click on one of the states, and it'll show you what are the hot job titles that they're seeking. What is the difference between like how many, the ratio of job openings against current job holders? What are the certifications that are listed in the job title against the number of certifications held by people in that state, right? So if you look at the very, the CompTIA, or however you say that.
CompTIA is that what I said. Yeah. I don't know. We might get some feedback.
I pronounce everything wrong. Don't get me started on Azure.
Oh yeah. I've heard that 4 different ways.
Look,
so.
someone explained to me about their Bastion host the other day, and I was like, "You mean the Bastion
instead of a Bastion?"
It was a Bastion. Like, now I'm really confused. But anyway, so some of those entry level certifications, a lot of people had them, and only a few of the jobs were requesting them. On the flip side, CISSP, very few people had it. A lot of people were asking for it, right? And so maybe that's a way to look at it is where do you want to work? What is the job you're looking for? What are the certifications they're asking for? And do you have a pathway to get them right away?
Right.
Or because CISSP, you have to have paid work in certain domains for a while before you can even.
4 years if you have a degree, or 5 years without?
Yeah, I can't even remember now, but yeah, it's a lot. So you don't go immediately for the CISSP.
Right. So it sounds like what you're saying is to find the job and then work backwards. From there.
Don't get your heart set on a single one.
Yes. Or like this job or
find it.
roles.
I think finding a company, once you hear about different companies that have positive work experiences for the people that you talk to, and then figure out, hey, I want to go work for this company. What would it take? What have they got?
Okay, that totally makes sense.
Yeah. And companies should invest in their employees. I mean, my master's program was paid for by my company. My CISSP was paid for by my company.
Same.
Currently studying for the CCSP right now, and that test will be taken by my company. So, they should be willing to invest. Okay. And so I think it's finding that company. And I think sometimes it's, where is that company? Jen gets great advice. Like, what are the things that, what's the majority thing that people are looking for? Right? Rather than trying to I think companies want this, like go out and look. Now, sometimes like certifications are just listed, especially the more well-known ones like the CISSP, that, HR and others are like, we're going to put this in here, and then they'll say or equivalent, because there's other certifications that are out there. But some ways it's just so that they can kind of like just, this is what the industry is looking for. How can we kind of, balance into that?
Right.
But by all means, definitely just, I think it's one of those like never stop learning type of things.
Right.
And, as you're kind of like exploring, because there's certifications in project management and in agile. And I mean, there's all different stuff when you look at different platforms and code certifications. Go to Code Academy if you want to just start learning Python, whatever it is. It's trying to gain that skill set that can be able to be beneficial for you and as well as the employer.
Right. So
excellent advice.
While you are learning those things, when do you know that what you have is enough? Like, I think that's what I'm also wondering about is like, okay, I've been learning these things and taking these courses. I haven't done a ton of practical experience. I haven't done a lot of practical application yet because I think I've been learning more about everything, like the theory about it, right? But then eventually you have to get hands-on and start trying. So when at that point, do you have enough practical experience or theory behind your belt that you are able to confidently go into an interview or say that you know these things? Because I don't even know what that looks like.
You've never interviewed for a job.
No. And like even the thought of like, I'm sorry, what? A company would pay for my certifications? I don't even know how to handle that, because if I want anything, I have to pay for it. If I want to go to this training, it's coming out of my pocket. It's like everything has been on me. So like, whoa, I don't, I'm having to shift my mindset to think like, whoa, somebody is willing to do that. They would be willing to invest in me like that. What?
Yeah. How do you get that foot in the door?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a great question. You know, one, I think you've got one of the key attributes, and that's a desire.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes people would go after a certain degree, especially in tech, because it's the hot thing right now. It's the hot market. You know, there's money to be made in it, and how can I get into it? But you know, if I didn't love technology and if I wasn't passionate about security, I wouldn't be doing this many years later.
Right.
And there has to be that core drive of wanting to know more. And like, even when the job ends, I'm still reading and I'm still doing things even on my own time because it interests me. So it's, how do you convince an employer? How do you say, I'm coming in, I've got this subset of, and you're using that word like, well, how do I know my skills are enough? When do you actually feel like this qualifies as a skill, right? You know, okay, I can type 80 words a minute. I think I can, you know, that's a skill, you know, but you know, I know how to write a document in Word. Is that a skill in Office? I know how to, you know, I can write a couple of lines of code in Python. Does that qualify as a skill? And what's that proficiently level at? A lot of it's just having that conversation of, you know, being forefront with the employer. This is what I want to do. And if they see the passion and they recognize that we can teach that technology, but you've got core skills that you cannot teach, right? This person is excellent at communication. They are eager to learn. You know, they are driven. They are passionate about where they want to go to. Then all that other stuff, that'll be layered on. And I tell people this all the time. I still trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. There's this constant like reevaluating of yourself.
Yes.
And I had a really great mentor a number of years ago who told me that every year I should go out and interview for another position at another company. I was like, well, that's pretty interesting. Even if I like where I'm at, he's like, absolutely. See where you level up within, you know, different companies and what they're looking for, and see if your skills meet what they're meeting. If they're not, well, does that mean that might be an opportunity to say, hey, they were looking for this skill and I didn't have that skill. Well, now I've got an opportunity to go learn that skill. And it's an opportunity to kind of reassess where you sit within the industry. So, but for you, it's getting that first foot in the door.
Right.
And sometimes it means you're going to take probably some of those less desirable jobs. Some of them that I say less desirable because they might mean things like on call.
Okay.
And having received a call on Christmas Eve, or Christmas morning at 3 a.m. because a password went out and I had to like reset it.
Yeah.
You know, that's what top 5 moments in my career, right? You know, and it's one of these where you might have to find yourself working through a help desk and working through and using some of those, you know, critical thinking and problem, you know, deduction and trying to figure out what the problem is and being able to work through that and then working your way up. I work with a number of people that were in the help desk at my company for years and just worked their way up through and eventually were able to move laterally into other positions. So it's willing to be able to kind of do that, boots on the ground, pay, you know, you're going to pay into your career and it's going to pay off in the end. But, you know, just suddenly moving into, you know, wow, this is a cushy thing. You know, that doesn't happen as much. It's really going to be is you have to put forth that effort.
Sure. That totally makes sense.
I started on the help desk.
Yeah.
It was learned a lot, especially when it's an internal help desk and you get calls about all sorts of things. It's a good way to start.
Yeah. You're going to know real quickly, like where there's things you got to learn, like, what are you talking about? And then you're like looking up the answer to try to figure it out. And then, but it causes you to think. And I think that's the thing is IT is a huge domain. I think people don't realize that things like telephony are within IT's domain.
Yeah. I don't
because
know
it's communications.
Telephony?
It's telephones.
Telephones.
Telephone.
Yeah.
Got it.
Just, you know, Yeah, companies have these things like that are PBX, and it's a phone exchange. And I remember I did my internship for the Department of Energy up in Idaho, and I remember I was kind of like sampling different parts of IT while I was up there as an intern. It was great. So I spent a little time doing like networking, going out in the desert and running cables. I spent some time doing a little bit of development. At one point, I followed a person around, and they were kind of showing me how they set up their phone system. This person's moving offices, so I got to take his phone line here and move it over here. It was interesting. It's things it's just so much that's out there in the field of information technology and tech. I think sometimes we just think it's development, right? Let's go crush some code, and drink a lot of Monster sodas, and there's a lot in development. There's a lot in that space, but there's a lot within operations and in network and in help desk. And there's so much that's out there that support an organization. So,
and having a good solid foundation in operations really helps in security because you know what those pivot points are.
Exactly.
You might get in through a code flaw, but the way you traverse the network is through knowing operations. So, well, you know what, Craig, I would love to have you back again and talk about the second set of information that we briefly discussed off air that I'm not going to tell anybody about right now. Because I think this is a lot of information, and I think, don't you feel like he's left you with some homework you could go do now?
Yeah, for sure.
Research some things, go do a few practice interviews, knowing that you're not going to get the job, just to see what an interview is like.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, like, comparing I reworked my resume during major lockdown, and seeing like what people want or the skills they want that I have or have had experience with doing hair. Like communication, obviously stylists are phenomenal communicators. We have to be, or else we don't build a business, and we don't have repeat clients, and people are like, why did I just pay you money to give me not what I want? So, I think that would be good too, to just look and see what people want and compare it with what experience I have in a different field.
For sure.
Yeah.
Right. Prepare yourself to, there's some interview questions that some people hate, and I've asked them, and I've been asked them several times, like things like, what's a weakness that you have? And I hated that question for a long time, and I've really thought about that a lot. And I'm like, my weakness is that I care too much.
Oh, yeah.
And I want to do the absolute best that I can. That's not related to anything in tech. That's just who I am. And some say, well, how is that a weakness? Well, it's because, I'm going to keep working at it and keep working at it. And sometimes it takes a lot of time, but I really do care about it. And that can be seen as a weakness, but also gives you an opportunity to spin that as a strength too as well. So think about, all these different qualities of like, what do you offer a company? What do you bring to the table? And you need to sell yourself on that.
Right.
And unfortunately, the interview processes are flawed because they're going through a bunch of candidates, and they're, checkboxing, looking for certain things. But once you get that interview and you can show I've got good communication skills, I'm passionate about learning, I want to know more, that's going to go a long ways. Now, you're going to have setbacks along the way. There's no doubt about it, right? I can't tell you the number of rejected when I was trying to get that first job. And I told this in Jen's podcast that we had a couple of months ago. I misread my interview date at my company. I showed up 1 week early to the interview.
Better than 1 week. They were
late. I walked in, and the security guard was like, the person was really confused that you were here. And I'm like, like panicking, like what in the world's going on? This was before smartphones. So I'm like, what did that email say? Maybe I misread it. And then, I kind of played it off as, well, at least I'm a week early and not a week late. But I thought I blew it. I was like, it's over. That's it. It's done. And so, and that's okay. And again, that's that whole idea is you reserve that right to be smarter tomorrow than you are today. And if that interview didn't go well, go back in your mind and figure out, find out, and even ask, just say, hey, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for interviewing. What areas you see that I need to work on, and ask the interviewer that, even after the rejection letter kind of comes, so that you can be able to say, here's those areas that I want to work on. It also just shows them like, I might be back. I might be back in 6 months from now. I'm going to rock that interview.
Right.
But recognize that there's going to be some stumbles along the way.
That is such great advice. 'Cause interviews are hard because that's that whole fear of rejection thing too, and taking on that, well, they don't even want to interview me, first of all, or you get interviewed and they don't like something about you, right? I had one where, you're not technical enough. And it was weird because they didn't even ask me any technical questions.
What?
I was like, okay, in your head, you already decided a thing. That's whatever. But so it's those things where sometimes it's not about you. It's about them. It's about somebody else. They already got the job because they had a buddy, right?
Gotcha.
So just don't let those things get in your way. But
yeah, there's been a couple of times I've interviewed and been like, I come back and I'm like, man, it's great advice. It's once a year, go out and interview. And there's been times I'm like, whew, well, I'm really glad I'm not having to solve those problems.
Yeah.
and if anything, it kind of like reiterates.
Yeah.
I got an okay thing going here.
Yeah. Thank you for not giving me that crappy job.
Exactly.
Well, it has been absolutely super talking to you. I think we're walking away with a lot of really good information and really appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I do think doing a follow-up would be awesome too, because I feel like there's a part two just waiting to happen.
Waiting in the wings.
Yes. But seriously, Craig, thank you so much. It's so helpful to hear this kind of information from people that are in the industry. It's like so encouraging to have, like, to hear what both of you are saying from completely different backgrounds. Like, it's very, very helpful. And so I just have to keep listening to that.
When we started off, we only had women coming and talking to her because she kind of wanted to know the female perspective of the job. And but as the more people we're talking to and the more kind of we're opening up, what is it you want to do and how do you want to do it? I really feel, as someone who has been in this industry for a long time, that gender is just not a question anymore. People are like, every once in a while, I mean, if somebody's an asshole, but people are going to be assholes about whatever it is they think they can. So if they're like, I don't like you and I'm going to pick out your short, like they'll pick whatever quick thing that they can attack, right? And so a lot of times it happens to be gender. That man, that woman, right? Because it's a quick thing you can say and be negative about, right? But the reality is, in working with people, that's not happening. Job interviews are not like that. Interacting with other people in the office, it's not like that, right? So there is not. I don't believe there is a rampant anti-female sentiment in cybersecurity. And sure, I mean, there's fewer women in the actual job right now, but that number is increasing. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Maybe I'm just Pollyanna.
No, I agree. I think it's definitely one of these that it's a growing industry, and I welcome everybody from all backgrounds, walks of life, anything. Come join. Yeah. We need more, and we need good, competent cybersecurity professionals out there. And I'm willing to work with anybody, and I have had wonderful experiences over the years. And it's, I feel like, there's always going to be those people, those edge cases that are that way. And that's in every industry as it is. But as a whole, I if anything, to inspire and bring people in from different backgrounds, because it's great perspectives. I remember mentoring a girl who joined our team a number of years ago, and she was like a French literature major.
Oh, wow.
And she had no clue. But you know what? Her name was Katie, and she was amazing. And she was really good, and she'd always ask really great questions. It didn't matter about French. Yeah. She had those great skills. We were able to teach the technology and those security things that she needed to know. But it was an awesome, and she's a friend of mine even after she left my company a number of years ago. Yeah. And it's just one of those where I feel like, come join, right. Be a part of a very interesting industry. We'll part two, we can talk about ways to avoid burnout. Because that unfortunately is the reality that you kind of go in head first, and you go and then there's that unfortunate reality of burnout. And we need to do everything we can so that we can avoid burnout, especially in our industry, because we need the best people, because the problems are only getting harder to solve, and we need the best.
That is a great topic to come back for.
But I welcome you to the industry, and that's what I always tell my students is welcome, but no matter what you end up doing, just focus on those security skills. You'll be that better asset to your company.
Awesome.
And that'll be harder for them to say, yeah, I don't know if I should hire this person, but they know security.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
That should be one of those factors that helps, push that resume forward a little bit further in the process.
Terrific. Well, we have a couple other people we have lined up to talk to Amber, and then we'll have you back in about a month or two. Super excited about that. Craig, I always love talking to you. Thank you for being so generous with your knowledge and your experience. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Craig. It's just so cool to see so many people that are so encouraging.
Yeah.
Like, wow, what a amazing community. I love it.
Yep. All right.
Welcome. And thank you for having me on. This was great.
Oh, thank you. All right. You take care. What'd you think?
I think that was awesome. I think I say that every time because they all are, but
I could talk to Craig like every day. I'm kind of jealous of the people who get to work with him because he is so passionate about cybersecurity and supporting people who want to be in cybersecurity and expanding the cybersecurity industry, making it better.
Yeah.
Love that about him.
But you're like that too. If you spot it, you got it, Jen. So it's like I mentioned this in the talk with Craig, but like Craig is like that. You're like that. The talk that you sent me, that Alyssa Miller, she is like that. Noreen is like that.
Yes.
There are more and more people in security that are just like rallying together and because I've only done hair, but I don't know that I've ever seen people that are so like, yes, we want to bring more people in. We need you.
I feel like this is unusual, but it's
incredible.
True. We do need more good people in cybersecurity.
Yeah.
So I think I'm not sure where I was going with the We have puppies in here, and they're so distracting.
Yes, they're very cute. They're very cute.
But no, I remember what I was going to say is we were on a presentation together talking to a global mentoring group. And I think that a lot of people are interested in our conversations because they are new to cybersecurity. So if you're listening or watching and you're new to cybersecurity and you know other people who are also new and trying to figure out a pathway into this as a career, please share this with them.
Yes,
because we need more people to know about it. We need more people in cybersecurity, and it all depends on it being shared out and getting the word out.
Right. Communication.
Right.
Communication.
So until next time, I am Jen.
And I'm Amber. Have a good day.
Take care.